Okay. Anyway, how's everybody doing?
Good.
So doing pretty good in Chicago.
Yeah, George?
Hanging in there.
Yeah, you guys feel like things are starting to get traction again as far as the different types of businesses, and you feel like there's some light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak?
I do. I see it varying for, like you said, for different segments of customers. It'll be refreshing when more people can open their doors up.
Yeah. And George, being in the beverage industry, that's probably going well, I'm assuming?
All things considered, compared to a lot of other industries and companies, we're doing pretty well. But to your question about the light at the end of the tunnel, here in Missouri, they're starting a phased opening really this week, and a lot of restaurants are opening their doors and getting creative, and we're pretty optimistic that more businesses than we initially thought are going to survive, which is great. So
right, because Chicago is definitely still kind of in a danger zone.
Yeah, I don't think the numbers have quite slowed down as much as they had hoped yet. As you know from living here, a lot of people commute to work on mass transit systems. That close proximity with millions of people traveling every day would be a big spike in the wrong direction.
Yeah. What's St. Louis like, George? As far as
pretty different than Chicago. It's not as dense, so people are definitely being pretty aware though, and there's masks everywhere, and people are practicing distancing. So pretty optimistic, but we'll see.
Elisa, you took a test and you were diagnosed as having COVID-19, right?
Yeah.
So tell us about that. I mean, what did that feel like?
So because I work in healthcare, I was able to get a test, but I started feeling sick first and just kept thinking, oh, it's a really bad cold. But the symptoms kept getting like weirder and weirder. Like I lost my sense of smell and taste, and I couldn't taste anything for 10 days. And then I started getting weird chest pain. I'm like, okay, this is definitely not just a cold.
Yeah.
And so then I went and got a test, and it was positive. So
obviously you beat it. And how long did that take?
So it was actually like exactly the 2-week mark of symptoms that I felt like I really turned a curve. That should be normal for the cold part to last a little bit longer.
Yeah.
But that I'm no longer contagious. So it was really like 2 weeks of being sick.
Yeah. So you were alone for 2 weeks. No one could come visit you or anything. So I'm wondering, as young single professionals that are all quite social, how have you dealt with the aspect of isolation and being alone for weeks?
It was a struggle, and like there was definitely days that were, or like weeks where your mindset was like harder to shift. I'm not going to say it's been easy all the time, because it hasn't. But it's definitely, I've just find myself like having to try to like shift my mindset onto something that's positive. Otherwise I can go down like this hole of, being sad.
I shared a verse with someone recently. And so this one is out of Philippians chapter 4. It says, don't worry about anything. Instead, pray about everything. It says, tell God what you need and thank him for everything that he's already done. And if you do this, you'll experience God's peace, which is more wonderful than the human mind can understand. So would you say that since you guys have been isolated, have you experienced that kind of peace that seems to be difficult to understand?
I think for me, right, it's not a binary answer. I mean, there's definitely times where there may be some discouragement, but for me personally, it's all about that perspective and realigning my mindset. So that's been a good perspective shift for me.
So it sounds like there's like a discipline in your mind. Everything's kind of aligning with God's plan and God's will, which is really a choice on our part.
Absolutely. And how do we be the hands and feet of Jesus to other people too, even if it's over Zoom? Yeah,
exactly. That's the heart of God, isn't it? So Alex, it says there in that verse I just read, it says, don't worry about anything. It says, pray about everything. So like for you, what part has prayer played in your life during this crisis?
Immediately from the start was probably the most pressing time for me to be in prayer, because I had an opportunity to leave. I wasn't sold on it, and I just began to pray and pray and pray, and I just kept hearing like this resounding feeling of like, stay. And I made that decision to stay, and I can't tell you like how revealing the past several weeks have been.
Yeah.
And I feel like I've grown in my faith. It's something that we're not going to get back, and I want to take advantage of it in a very positive way, doing his work.
So you've actually taken advantage of this, a time that which many people think has just been horrible. You've actually taken advantage of it and benefited from it.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I've seen a lot of things that after this is all done, I will keep with me, that really just, again, keeps me in tune with the messages that God is trying to send to me.
Yeah. Yeah. I know Julie and I have felt the same way. We were actually supposed to be in America, and we could have actually escaped back to America. We just immediately went into prayer and saying, God, what do you want us to do? And we really felt like we were supposed to stay here in Thailand. It's been revolutionary for Empower International, but also for us personally in our relationship with Jesus. So, when you're going through tough times, and the tough times aren't over, with regard to this worldwide pandemic, but I believe that it can turn around to our advantage. That's what Paul said to the Romans. He said, all things work together for good to those who love God and are called according to his purpose. So I really believe that if we will seek God, take advantage of these moments, that God's going to turn it around for good. So how about you, Elisa? How did you lean on God in this time?
Yeah, I think it was just whenever the feelings of anxiety and fear would come, because they did, I would just put on worship music and be like, no, this is how I'm going to shift my mind.
That's good.
And start praying. And if I've called people and said, hey, can you pray for me right now?
That's
Just
awesome.
so that's been huge. So it's been really sweet to see God just come into those moments, and where I could be so stressed or anxious, and then just such a sweet peace comes after spending a few minutes in his presence.
Yeah, because he's faithful every time we cry out to him.
Yes,
He's there. You guys are part of an amazing church, but how has the church been the church for you guys during this several weeks of not being able to be together?
There's just a good schedule of events each week that you can find a way to make something if you really want to, and it's helped us just stay really collected as a group. Yeah,
I think staying connected during times like this is really important. Many people go into depression and they lose hope and they commit suicide because they have no community. And so that's why I think it's really important that City Church has extended that. I mean, they've gone overboard, I think, in a good way, to make sure that the people remain connected. Even though they can't physically meet, they are still connected.
Yeah, I'd add that even our most recent life group that I'm in was referencing Ecclesiastes 4, which talks a lot about how 2 is better than 1. And, 1 can be overwhelmed and 2 can defend themselves. And I think at a time like this, to know that they have somebody that they can lean on and go through this with can make a really big difference.
Yeah. Well, hey, I know it's late for you guys. I know you probably want to go to sleep now, but you're so young. You'd probably be up a lot longer than this anyway. But anyway, I appreciate you taking the time to visit with me, and it's really good to catch up. And thanks for staying up late for me.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, it was great being here.